Containment. A short story from the collection in dealing with things not quite natural. Eyes locked. I could see the rage festering, even during one of those rare moments it stood still. Pupils dilated and sclera bloodshot. The beast would then break its gaze with me, running about the cage, slamming into the metal bars with immense force. It looked something like a shadow, covered head to toe in coarse, dark fur. It had been 2 days since we had subdued it, if I dare say it like that. Captured? Hardly. Contained would be the proper word. We had just created something to allow ourselves safe distance should the monster gather up enough murderous intent to strike out again. The day previous, Patel had experienced such a thing. Hoisting a fresh side of goat up, he had attempted to shove it through the bars of the cage. Even as cautious as he was, the beast outmatched him in terms of reflexes. Before he could pull his arm out of reach, the beast snatched it up, pulling him towards the cage. Patel's head met with the bars with a sickening crack. If it wasn't the concussion that knocked him out, it was the sound of his shoulder dislocating. Either way, he was lucky to be out cold while it tore through the muscle and separated Patel's limb from his body. We confirmed our suspicion that it was, indeed, carnivorous. Nobody has wanted to step within 10 feet of the bars since then. Its limbs, though gangly, are purely muscle. I would venture to say that he could best any strongman in a contest of weights. They took Patel away in a boat from the village yesterday morning. He had lost a lot of blood, and of course, there's no proper hospitals anywhere in this backwoods shithole country. He's replaceable at least. We want to get rid of it, to be honest, but those damn scientists feel like keeping it around until they've done their tests. No idea how they plan on getting the bug to cooperate. Meanwhile, I'm supposed to write an article on how we discovered it. Utter cock-up it was. Jakarta is where we heard rumors of such a thing like this. All we needed were some guides and porters, but when we told them we were heading to this tip of Sumatra, most of them turned us down. All we heard was superstitious whinging about something that lived out there. Hell, we even offered them guns and ammunition that they could use if some sort of boogeyman decided to pop out of the jungle. None of them were having it. Eventually ran across some Indian fellows who were convinced more easily by coin rather than superstition. With the fresh hands, we loaded up the boat with fresh supplies and did the short hop over to the Sumatra coast. There are some native blokes that live along the coast here, but inland seems pretty dense and unforgiving. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, I suppose. The first night we were swarmed by mozzies. The shitty boggy ground by the river were pretty much breeding ground for them. The next night we made sure to set up camp away from those bastards' home. That's when we first heard the sounds. Roars and moans, ear-shattering like some sort of animal in agony ready to keel over. We unpacked the rifles just to be safe. First daylight we started our first observations, notepads in hand, while those brownies carried all the junk to collect samples. Jensen found some spiderweb holding some ugly bugger as big as my hand. Said it wasn't in any books he knew of. I couldn't care less if that 8-legged demon had been discovered or not. I could turn it into something to shock the readers, though. One of Patel's kids managed to capture a wild boar. Crafty wanker. We ate good that night. At least until it showed up. It must have been drawn in by the smell. I remember it tearing into camp, knocking down our crates full of supplies. Like a streak of lightning, it plowed into the center of us, probably surprised by the fire. One of the younger guys, a brownie, got in its way. The thing grabbed him by the arm and pulled him off, screaming. Didn't even have time to pull our guns up out of the dirt. It was without a doubt what those inlanders had been talking about when they told us to fear this place. Some beast roaming the jungles. Somehow, the two eggheads got it in their mind that they wanted to capture it. They had brought a cage after all, should they want to bring back some sort of animal to trade with them. The brownies wanted to head out, but as soon as more coin was plopped down in front of them, they did an about-face real quick-like. In the quick look I got at the thing, I knew that little cage would not hold it. Instead, they took it down to the bare bars and pounded them into the ground one by one, in a big ring. Fixed it up real secure with some rope and vines. I really hoped it was secure, to be honest. They placed the remains of the boar in the middle to act as a lure. Its roar finally signaled to us that there would be a moment of do or die. One of the kids ended up luring it into the cage. I wasn't thrilled myself, but Patel didn't seem fazed about it. The kid was fast and could slip through the bars easily. He went up to the edge of the camp, greased up with the pig fat to make him more enticing. Just like before, the thing came running. He took off with the kid right into the trap. Wasn't too smart. Two of the other guys ran over to keep him inside with the torches lit up, and the third pounded in the final stake, tying off the rope. The beast got a good swipe in, but in the end, we had caught him good. He knew it too, the brute. He kept staring back at us as if he wished us death. Covering most of his body was a thick layer of bristly dark hair, matted with mud in many places. His face was uncannily human-like, save his stubby nose and nostrils bent up in a V-shape that flared constantly in our direction. Behind his flappy lips hid pairs of sharp incisors stained yellow. Even his eyes shined something contemptible, almost red. The beast sat upon the ground with all four of its limbs, although the front pair looked as if they could be used like hands. Eventually got fed up with us staring him down and decided to attack the bars with full force. They held. I did the same with my breath. Hillary commented that it could be a Gigantopithecus, one of those giant extinct apes that are seen only in sketches and crude paintings framed beside their skeletal remains. If it were indeed one of these things, its discovery would be unprecedented for the scientific community, he described. The only thing I saw was a monster, held tentatively at best, and certainly unable to be quelled. I knew that there would be no bringing it home. I also knew that there would be no way to release it without putting the entire party in danger. It was a stalemate. As per the job description put on all my check stubs, I wanted to produce written records of whatever discoveries we would make. That is what this has become. I wanted to try and put something more about this thing, but words escape me. As I look upon the beast, all I see is rage, perhaps fright, despite all the power contained inside that thing. Jensen and Hillary wanted to try and use a tranquilizer dart on it so they could get a closer look without it eviscerating them. A full clip went to that thing. I've been told those darts are meant for trips through the African bush to take down elephants, especially big bulls that decide they want to cause trouble. They did nothing for our friend. Perhaps the matted hair and thick skin wouldn't simply allow for them to take. Didn't like it one bit either. Bored from trying to find more ways to describe his monstrous comportment, I turned to sketching him. When my eyes met his, it was as if I could see his blood boiling. I know animals take a stare down as a challenge, and I wasn't going to back down from myself. He would bang in the bars, but only as if to intimidate me, rather than if he were trying to break loose. Finally, when I would turn my eyes down to my sketch pad, he would huff and snort triumphantly like he had won something. The other simpletons would try and provoke it. If it wasn't the eggheads trying to sneakily draw its blood or take a hair sample while they thought it was asleep, it was the kids attempting to poke at it with sticks. It seemed he'd had enough, which is when our incident with Patel happened. After a few days, our supplies had begun to run low, and I was running out of real estate for the mozzies to claim. We had expected to take a curving path eventually back up to the shore, but since we had taken a prisoner, we ended up staying put. Seems Jensen and Hillary acted satisfied enough with their findings anyway. That night, the beast began howling with the same shrill roar that we had heard before. Nobody could sleep. The brownies had the genius idea of shaking their torch at it in order to make it shut up. The thing just got more pissed, but they wouldn't relent. I saw when the flame from the torch licked up against the rope, setting it ablaze. The cage became wrapped in flames, both unraveling the rope and sending the beast into a frenzy. With one final roar, it slammed into the cage bars again, uprooting them from the soil. It took no time tearing its claws into the nearest of the men before they had a chance to run. I quickly ducked behind my bunk on the ground as he began to knock into the tables and other furniture where Jensen had been working. Needless to say, they didn't stand a chance either. As it continued wreaking havoc on anything and everything we had brought with us, I hunched down closer into the mud. Eyes gleaming in the dim firelight, I could see it finally turn to me. Our eyes met like before. We must have sat there seconds, unblinking, a connection just between the two of us. As my eyes started to water with the urge to blink, the beast turned tail and quickly ran out of the disheveled camp, leaving me untouched.